Xperi, we make the ordinary extraordinary. Your favorite products and services are smarter, more immersive, and more personal. With our brands powering the devices you use, the cars you drive, and the entertainment you enjoy. In the connected car, with the arrival of autonomous vehicles, there is increasing demand for video and gaming on the road. So, we're surrounding drivers and their passengers in high-quality, personalized audio and video, just like at home, with crystal clear, subscription-free digital radio, including more stations featuring your favorite programs and artists.
And it's my pleasure to introduce you to Jason Malore, who is the Vice President of All In Media, a part of Xperi. He's been building products for the radio industry since co-founding All In Media, otherwise known as AIM, in 2007. Now, he oversees the design and development of the infrastructure at AIM that supports millions of active radio listeners every day. AIM's rapid radio metadata products, along with AIM radio mobile apps, support thousands of radio stations around the world with their digital transformation, including many of us in the room today. Jason, this is my personal favorite. I love what you guys do. Why? Because we know that mobile listening is an important audience segment for radio broadcasters. What would you say to radio stations looking at the mobile apps for their radio stations?
Hey, Jared. Great to be here, and a good question. I think there's a lot of pitfalls in the mobile space, as you know. I think the main thing I would say is there is a lot of listening happening on mobile. So if you have a mobile app, you're probably already aware of that. If you don't, you are missing out on listenership. Obviously, there is some crossover between broadcast and mobile, but not in all cases. And I would say understand if you've got a mobile app, I would say make sure you understand your audience, make sure your app works. Unfortunately, a lot of people, a lot of stations don't use their apps regularly. I would say start using your apps more regularly. Make sure the podcasts work. Make sure the audio works. Make sure the audio quality works. I think it's important that the mobile app reflects your brand. It should be a high quality app, but ultimately for the listener, it's a utility. You know, the radio app, if they're using it, should work. If they turn the broadcast radio on at home or in the car, the expectation is that it works flawlessly. You know, very much the same thing applies with a mobile app.
So let's dig into that a little bit more. You mentioned some common pitfalls. What are some of those pitfalls that we should be keeping an eye out for?
Again, I think we've been doing this a long time, probably 12 years now. I think some of the most common ones are not realizing that it's constantly evolving. So one of the big gotchas is a lot of people think that you hire a group of people or hire an agency potentially, you build an app, you launch it, and you're done. And that's very much not the case. The platforms are constantly evolving. Obviously, with Apple, you obviously have new phones every year, but Android have new phones every year. There's updates to the operating system, and what consumers want evolves. So I think you need to understand that your presence on a mobile phone needs to be kept up to date and is going to iterate over time. I think the other gotchas happens less so now, but actually there are a lot of suppliers who would put the app out under their own account. So you would be a broadcaster and the digital agency or the developer might put the app out under their own account. But that means the broadcaster doesn't have control. And then if you fall out with your development partner, you potentially lose control of the app and lose the listeners. I think that's a real factor. And I think also there can be a tendency to over concentrate on design and features within the apps when actually what is a good radio app is quite well established now. So I would have a look at what other people in your space are doing and concentrate on what your listeners are likely to want. And I think there has been a tendency to assume that you build it and you're done. And I think that's caught quite a few people out.
So Jason, there's so many platforms for us to consider now, from CarPlay to Android Auto, from the smart speaker space through to mobile apps, websites. The list just goes on and on. How important is it to be on all platforms?
It's a good question. I think some broadcasters really want to be everywhere the listeners are. And I think that's a really good soundbite. I think the challenge is not all platforms are created equal. So, for example, there is a significant amount of listening that happens on mobile apps and smart speaker platforms, but TV listening is also significant, but only in certain markets and on certain platforms. So I think the broadcasters really need to understand where that listening is. And I think we're also living in an increasingly connected world. And at Xperi, we have a number of broadcast technologies. So we're talking about apps now, but we also have AIM Rapid, which is a system that connects to all of the innards of the radio station really and helps you get metadata onto lots of platforms. But we also, I suspect a lot of people in the room will know Xperi from HD Radio, but we also have DTS AutoStage, which is a connected car platform that enhances broadcast radio. So it's a broadcast first experience, but it provides additional data to the cars so that they can provide a richer radio experience and help it stand up against all of the other competing platforms in the car. So what I would say is have a look at where your audience is and don't go in blind. I think, we have seen broadcasters spend an awful lot of money and time getting onto a platform only to find that the listeners that they expected to be there are simply not there.
What's one action we can take today to help us out with our stations?
I would start actively looking at how your station is represented on digital platforms. Play with your mobile apps on different devices. Make sure that the smart speaker implementations that you are part of work. Have a look at, if you do have a mobile app, does it work with CarPlay? Does it work with Android Auto? Have you started looking at native Android automotive apps? And I think if you are going to be on those platforms, make sure the execution is what you want it to be, because there are listeners whose only contact with your radio station is going to be through those platforms. And if the experience is poor, that's not great, but it's actually worse if you're not aware of it.
Jason, thanks so much for your time. Juan from Xperi actually has a booth out there at the moment, and I know that you love to look after our delegates, and you've got an offer for us. I'll throw it over to you just to tell us what that is.
Yeah, we'd love you to come by the stand, and we'll be offering a discount to anyone that signs up during the conference.
Thanks so much for joining us, Jason.
You're very welcome. Thanks for your time.